Yes, my landlord is a creep. This much is obvious. But that doesn't mean I'm not above using his lustful impulses to my advantage. It's been a few months since my arrangement with him started, and it's been going splendidly. My bank account's been getting chubby. But everything went downhill. Before I get ahead of myself, I should explain how our little agreement came about. I live in an apartment complex with dozens of other residents. The complex's landlord lives just a few doors down from my apartment, so you can imagine how often I walk by every day. Any time I walked by his apartment windows, Jared, the landlord, would always walk up to the glass and eye me up and down, head to toe. But his eyes always seemed to linger when he got to my shoes. Frankly, it was creepy as hell, and I was growing sick of it. I was honestly ready to move out. But as I was coming home from the gym one day, the apartment doors swung open. In the frame stood Jared, visibly salivating, his eyes clearly fixed on my sneakers. I gripped the little bottle of mace on my keychain, ready to spray his face if he tried anything. He suddenly darted to his pocket. I flinched and pointed the mace in his direction. Luckily for him, I stopped when I heard the sound of Benjamin's crinkling in his hands.
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
he announced, showing me the money in his hand while his other palm faced me. He would look at my eyes and then return his gaze to my feet. Slowly bending over, he placed $300 bills on the ground between us. Stepping back and giving me some space as if I were some sort of caged animal. When he was far enough away, he pointed back at my feet.
I'll trade you for those,
he said, while slurping back his drool. My shoes? I questioned, confused.
No, your socks.
His eyes widened when he spoke the word socks. I felt this overwhelming feeling of disgust wash over me. Ew, the hell? No. I responded with sassy conviction. Just as I turned to walk away, he made a counteroffer.
Wait, I'll make it worth your while.
He reached into his back pocket and pulled 2 more crisp $100 bills from his person. $500 for a pair of dirty, worn gym socks. I'd heard that some guys fetishized women's feet, but damn, I never imagined that my nasty, gnarled feet could garner this much compensation. While I was intrigued, I would be betraying my personal morals if I handed my socks over to him to do who knows what with them. He must have noticed my pensive expression, because he continued to sweeten the deal further.
Tell you what, I'll cover your rent every month if you just leave your worn socks by my door every time you walk by.
His eyes did not waver. This man was dead serious. My jaw dropped at his offer, and a smile inched across his face as he realized he had me. Before anyone judges me, my rent is $1,500. As a broke college student, this man was offering something I couldn't refuse. I bent down to unlace my sneakers, and I swear I could hear his heart pounding out of his chest. Or was it mine? I'm not quite sure. I'd never done anything like this. So you could imagine the conflicting emotions I was feeling. I pulled my sweaty socks off my feet and a twinkle formed in his eyes as my toes met the open air. His lust-filled stare caused me to scrunch my toes away, pressing my toenails against the hot midday concrete. I tossed my moist, balled-up socks into his hands. He picked up the money and handed it over to me. I was slightly confused. He said he'd cover my rent, but was also handing me the $500. My face must have screamed confusion, because he clarified.
Think of this as a tip.
I was shocked. When I didn't take the money, he laid it back on the ground and slowly stepped back into the apartment door, shutting it closed. I hesitantly picked the cash off the ground. I was a few $100s richer and free of the burden of my rent payment. This, however, did not free me from the mild guilt I felt. As the weeks drew on, I stayed true to our agreement. Every time I would walk by the office, I would stop to take my socks off, placing them at the foot of the office door. Jared also abided by our agreement. In fact, he went above and beyond. Any time I would lay sweaty gym socks at his door, I would end up finding an envelope wedged into the crack of my door, usually with some creepy message saying something like, "Keep them coming." But behind his notes would always be a large tip. I don't care who you are. If someone is throwing money at you for something so idiotic, you're going to do it. One day, I decided to wear a pair of flip-flops on a quick run to the grocery store. The first time since our agreement started that I did not wear socks. When I returned from my little escapade, I had nothing to lay at the door. I didn't think it would matter much. I'd already given Jared a few dozen pairs of socks. But I was wrong. When I didn't stop at Jared's door, he rushed out in what I thought was fury.
What are you doing? Where are the socks?
His outburst made me cower inside my hoodie. But as I looked into his eyes, I could see they were giving off fear rather than anger. "I don't wear socks with flip-flops," I said in a shaky tone. Jared gripped 2 handfuls of his hair and produced a very guttural scream of frustration through his throat.
You don't know what you've done. I'm going to have to pay for this.
From behind him wafted out the pungent reek of body odor. I surmised it was the weeks of dirty socks lying around the apartment. But as I glanced over Jared's shoulder, I noticed a figure resting atop his couch, dressed in quilt-like garments. As my eyes adjusted, the figure started to become clearer. It was not an actual person, but a life-sized doll, stitched from the mini socks I'd given him over the weeks. It was facing a little TV, and I could tell Jared had just been snuggled up to the doll, because the couch cushion next to it had the distinct impression of Jared's backside. My ears began to ring at the creepy sight. Jared noted my gaze and moved to dispel any misconceptions about the situation.
It's not what it looks like,
he said, showing me his clean palms. When my gaze didn't break connection with the doll, he tried breaking it with his body, stepping in front of my line of sight. The doll briefly disappeared behind Jared's frame. But as I craned to see the doll, it moved. The doll's head slowly pivoted away from the TV and looked towards the door. A woman's monotone voice came from the direction of the faceless figure. "Honey, did she bring some more?" My senses were overloaded. I instantly went into flight mode and darted off towards my apartment. As I ran away, I heard Jared pleading for mercy.
"No! Please, honey. I'll make it up to you,"
he begged. But as the door creaked closed, I heard several loud bangs and Jared's anguished screams. For the next week, I was too scared to walk by Jared's door. I opted to take the long way around to the parking lot whenever I needed to go somewhere. But as much as I tried avoiding Jared, I had this strange feeling that he was watching me. A suspicion quickly confirmed when I ran some trash to the dumpster. As I tossed the garbage bags in the container, I had a feeling that someone was staring at me from around the far end of the apartment's walls. I don't know what got into me, but as I walked around the opposite end of the apartment side, I pressed my body against the masonry, waiting for whoever was spying on me to step out into the open, as if I already didn't know. Jared scurried out of the shadows and made his way over to the dumpster. He didn't hesitate to jump in, tossing out the garbage bags I had just disposed of. When they rested on the pavement, he ripped them open, presumably looking for old socks. I, however, knew he wouldn't find any. He already had all of my old worn-out socks. I won't be tossing out any old pairs for some time. But as Jared pulled out the contents of my bathroom's disposables, I saw his eyes gleam with excitement. He had found my toenail clippings. My skin crawled when he pressed them against his face, caressing them as if they were a godsend. I couldn't hold back my gasp, and he cocked his head in my direction. When his face met mine, I saw his left eye was swollen and bruised. Now I knew what punishment had befallen him when I had no socks to give him a week prior. His eyes widened with surprise, and I made a run for it.
"Wait! Stop! You don't understand. If I don't get her your socks, she's going to kill us both."
I paid no mind to his begging. When I reached my apartment, I slammed the door shut. Jared grunted in frustration from outside my window when he finally caught up. Through the muffled tone of the door, his voice slithered into my place.
"If we don't give her what she wants, she'll come for you next. It may already be too late for me. Just give her what she wants."
His voice signaled genuine doom. He started walking away, his steps echoing in my head. I've been cowering in my apartment since yesterday. I've packed a bag and was ready to make my escape early this morning. But when I opened the door and looked down the corridor towards Jared's door, a familiar quilted stare met my face. I barricaded myself in my apartment. I'm pretty sure Jared is dead, and if I don't give this thing what it wants... I think I'm next.